I pulled up to the house and sat in the car for a minute, hands resting on the steering wheel. It still felt strange driving here. I used to live in that house, mow that lawn, fix that porch light. Now it looked like something out of a magazine. Perfect grass, polished cars lined up in the driveway, porch lit like a stage. Brad's style all over it. I told myself none of that mattered. Tonight was Chloe's night. My little girl had done it, valedictorian, full scholarship, a future brighter than anything I ever had. All those years of late nights studying with her, science fair projects sprawled across the kitchen table, soccer games in the pouring rain. It was worth it. Every bit. When I walked in, the smell of barbecue hit me, mixed with perfume and beer. Laughter floated from the backyard, music thumping low. I caught sight of Lisa first. She gave me a small, polite smile, nothing more, then turned her shoulder toward Brad. He was in his element, tall and sharp, laughing louder than everyone else, shaking hands like a politician. Then Chloe spotted me. She ran up and hugged me tight. For a second, it was just us. She whispered, "Dad, you made it." "Of course I did," I said, my throat tight. I handed her a small box I'd been carrying around all day. Inside was a silver bracelet with her graduation date engraved on it. Something quiet, personal. She slipped it on right there, kissed my cheek, and smiled like it meant the world. That moment alone would have been enough for me. I stayed near the edges of the party after that, drink in hand, watching her laugh with her friends, her mom, even Brad. I was used to standing back now, watching from a distance. As long as Chloe was happy, I told myself I could live with it. But deep down, I felt something shifting. I didn't know it yet, but before the night was over, everything between us would change. Brad tapped a fork against his glass, the high chime cutting through the noise of the party. The backyard slowly quieted, laughter fading, conversations breaking off mid-sentence. People turned their heads toward the patio where Brad stood, one arm around Chloe's shoulders. I stayed where I was, in the shade near the fence, watching. He had the stance of a man used to attention, chin lifted, smile stretched wide. "I just want to take a minute," he began, voice carrying easily over the hush. "Tonight isn't just about a diploma or a scholarship. It's about celebrating the amazing young woman Chloe has become." There was polite clapping. Chloe's cheeks went pink as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Brad looked down at her with a kind of rehearsed fondness before facing the crowd again. "From the moment I came into her life, I saw her potential. She's hardworking, driven, and she deserves every bit of success coming her way." His tone was smooth, the kind you hear in commercials, every word polished. So I wanted to do something special, something that shows just how much we all believe in her future. I felt a faint stir in the pit of my stomach. His pause was deliberate, his eyes scanning the guests like a man about to close a deal. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a set of car keys, and let them dangle in the air. The metallic jingle caught the light. A ripple of murmurs moved through the crowd. Brad grinned. "Chloe, these are yours." For a second she just stared, lips parted, not understanding. Then he gestured toward the side gate. "Go on. Take a look." Her friends squealed, tugging her toward the driveway. The crowd followed, a stream of excited voices spilling out onto the street. I walked slower, letting the bodies move ahead until I reached the edge of the driveway. There it was. A shiny Honda Civic sat under the streetlight, its paint gleaming, its tires so new the stickers were still clinging. Balloons tied to the side mirrors bobbed in the night air. Chloe froze on the sidewalk, her hands covering her mouth. "Are you serious?" she shouted, voice cracking with disbelief. Brad walked behind her, proud and booming. "Brand new. Just for you." He slipped the keys into her palm with a flourish. She screamed then, the kind of scream only 18-year-olds manage when the world seems perfect. Her arms wrapped around Brad's neck as she bounced on her toes. "Oh my God. Thank you. I can't believe this." Phones were out immediately. Guests snapped pictures, recording video, clapping and cheering. Chloe rushed to the car, fumbling with the key, her fingers shaking as she opened the door and slid into the driver's seat. The interior lights glowed soft around her face, her grin stretching wider as she ran her hands over the... Brad leaned against the hood, basking in the crowd's admiration. He gave a little shrug as if to say, "What can I say? This is what fathers do." Chloe revved the engine, the headlights flooding the driveway. Her friends cheered louder, one of them shouting, "Best graduation ever." She laughed, rolling down the window, shouting back, "I love it." I stood at the edge of the crowd, my drink gone warm in my hand. The applause swelled around me, voices rising with her joy. She was glowing, alive, practically trembling with happiness. And Brad was right there at the center of it, the hero of the night. The cheering hadn't even settled when Chloe climbed out of the driver's seat, flushed with excitement. Her friends circled her, phones flashing, laughter spilling into the night. Someone shoved a microphone into her hand, urging her to say something. She looked around, hesitant at first, then raised it to her lips. Wow, she started, still a little breathless. The crowd quieted, eager to hear. I honestly didn't expect tonight to be this amazing. Her voice wavered, but it was steady enough to carry. I worked so hard to get here, and it feels like everything is finally paying off. The usual chorus of "ah" rose from the audience. I shifted on my feet, already proud, already thinking this was her moment to shine. She deserved it. Then her eyes found mine. Something in her expression changed, not cold, exactly, but sharp. She took a breath, microphone held tight. "My stepdad Brad bought me a car," she said, her tone louder. "My real dad never did anything like that." The words cut clean through the air, slicing the chatter into silence. The crowd froze, heads turning, eyes darting between me and her. "Thank you, Brad," she continued, her gaze still locked on me, "for being the father figure I never had and actually investing in my future." It was like the air itself had dropped a degree. Even the night sounds, the hum of crickets, the low thrum of the car's engine, seemed to vanish. I felt every pair of eyes shift toward me, waiting, measuring. The glass in my hand suddenly felt heavy, slick with sweat. Brad stood near the hood of the car, lips curling into a small, satisfied smirk. He didn't clap, didn't need to. The smirk was enough. Lisa, on the other hand, looked down, her arms folding across her chest. Her jaw was tight, her eyes focused on the ground, as if she wished it would swallow her whole. The silence stretched. A cough broke somewhere in the back. A few guests shuffled, not sure if they should laugh, clap, or just keep staring. I didn't move. My heart thudded against my ribs, not from anger, at least not the kind that explodes, but the kind that sinks, heavy and steady, like a stone settling in water. Chloe, oblivious to the weight of it all, beamed at Brad, holding the microphone close. She leaned into him, and he put an arm around her shoulders as though sealing the moment. The crowd finally offered hesitant applause, thin and awkward, like they were clapping out of obligation. I stayed rooted in place, my jaw tight but my face calm. I knew if I opened my mouth now, if I let anything slip, it would scorch the entire night. And it was still her night, no matter how deep the knife had gone. So I breathed, steady, silent, letting the sting sink deeper without showing it. Brad's smirk widened when he noticed I hadn't reacted. Lisa finally lifted her eyes, meeting mine for a fraction of a second before turning away again. And in that moment, I understood something. They wanted a scene. They wanted me to break. I wasn't going to give them that. The microphone passed into someone else's hand, the crowd recovering enough to force more applause, louder this time, as if volume alone could patch over the awkwardness. I stood still, watching Chloe laugh and wave, watching Brad guide her back toward the patio, soaking in the spotlight like it was built for him. The sting in my chest was sharp, but not wild. It didn't boil over. It sank deeper, colder, like steel driven under the skin. Anger wanted out, but anger would only serve them. I knew that. I've worked long enough in construction sites to know, when a beam cracks, the wrong move can bring the whole thing down. Sometimes the only way to hold the structure is to keep still, let the pressure settle until you can move with precision. I set my empty glass on the edge of a table and made my way through the crowd. Nobody stopped me. A few even stepped aside, pretending not to notice. My steps felt steady, measured. I wasn't going to stumble, wasn't going to look broken. Not here. Chloe spotted me halfway across the yard. Her face softened, guilt flickering for the first time all night. Maybe she thought I was coming to argue. Maybe she expected a lecture. Instead, I opened my arms. She hesitated, then stepped into the hug. "Congratulations," I said quietly against her hair. "I'm proud of you." Her shoulders loosened. She pulled back, her eyes shining with the kind of relief that told me she hadn't expected kindness from me in that moment. I gave her a small smile, the kind she used to chase when she was little, the one that said no matter what storm she stirred up, she was still my daughter. Brad was watching, arms crossed, smirk-tempered now, maybe even puzzled. Lisa stood further back, her lips pressed thin, unreadable. I didn't give either of them the satisfaction of a second glance. I squeezed Chloe's hand once, then let go. "Enjoy your night," I told her. She nodded, biting her lip as though she wanted to say more, but the noise of the crowd swallowed the moment. And just like that, I turned. No raised voice. No scene. Just the sound of my shoes on the patio stones as I walked out. The laughter and music picked up behind me, filling the silence I left. By the time I reached the front of the house, the noise was distant, muffled like it belonged to some other world. The street was cool and still. My car sat where I'd left it, plain and ordinary under the streetlight. I slid behind the wheel, the faint smell of sawdust still lingering from the job site earlier that week. My hands gripped the steering wheel, not tight, not trembling, just firm. I didn't start the engine right away. I let the quiet wrap around me, the night air drifting through the crack in the window. Inside, the weight of her words pressed down, heavier than anything I'd carried before. But on the surface, I was steady. Let them have their applause, their photographs, their shiny gestures. Let them think they'd won something. I started the car and pulled away, the house shrinking in my rearview mirror, lights glowing softer and softer until they were gone. I didn't look back. When I got home, the house was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful but heavy, like the walls are holding their breath. I didn't bother turning on the TV or pouring another drink. I just sat at the kitchen table, staring at the dark window, my reflection faint in the glass. Her words kept replaying, not loud, but steady, like a metronome I couldn't shut off. My real dad never did anything like this. I could almost hear the applause again, the way everyone had looked at me after. I pulled my laptop closer and opened it. No hesitation, no second guessing. I typed in the credentials I'd memorized years ago, the ones I'd guarded like a vault. The account number blinked on the screen. A little over $91,000. 18 years of deposits. Paychecks skimmed, bonuses tucked away, birthdays skipped without extra gifts because I told myself college will matter more. Every line on that statement was another reminder of sacrifices I never once regretted. Until now. I clicked transfer. Watched the bar crawl across the screen. Watched the numbers move from her future to my control. Just like that, the weight shifted. My chest loosened a fraction. When it was done, I leaned back in the chair. The screen glowed cold and final. That money wasn't sitting in her name anymore, waiting for someone else to claim credit for it. It was mine again. Mine to decide what to do with. I closed the laptop and reached for a pad of paper where I kept reminders. Scribbled a note. Call insurance, remove Chloe, effective end of month. Another line. Phone plan, cancel secondary line. The pen moved smooth, no pause. These weren't punishments, not in my head. They were boundaries. She'd drawn her line in front of everyone, and I was simply respecting it. I sat there a long while, the notes in front of me, the house silent except for the hum of the fridge. I thought about all the years of chauffeuring her to school, letting her practice parallel parking in my truck, the extra safety coverage I added when she got her license. I thought about the times her phone had buzzed at midnight, and I'd answered just to calm her down from a bad dream, even though she was too old for nightmare. None of that showed up in a speech. None of it was flashy, but it had all been real. The clock on the oven glowed past midnight. I finally stood, stretched the stiffness from my back, and turned off the kitchen light. Upstairs, the bed felt colder than usual, but I slept anyway, heavy, dreamless. By morning, the decision had settled into me, not raw anymore but solid. I made the calls before work. The insurance rep was polite, the process simple. Remove a driver, adjust the premium. The phone company barely asked questions. It was routine, mechanical. When I hung up, I felt a strange calm, like tightening bolts on a beam, securing it in place. No one else needed to know what I'd done. Not yet. But when they did, there wouldn't be any undoing it. I grabbed my keys, headed out the door, and drove to the site. Another workday waited, drills humming, concrete pouring, life moving forward as if nothing had shifted. But something had. And I knew the next crack in their perfect picture was coming. The shine on that car had been bothering me. I knew enough about money to understand something didn't add up. A dealership manager doesn't just hand over a brand new vehicle to an 18-year-old with no job. Not unless there was more to the story. So I started digging. Not out of spite, but out of instinct. I'd built my life on details, numbers, contracts, weight loads. If something looked too clean, too easy, it usually wasn't. I called a contact at the bank I'd worked with before. A few quiet questions, nothing dramatic. Within a day, the picture came into focus. Chloe wasn't given a car. She was saddled with one. The loan papers had her name at the top, bold as daylight. Primary borrower, Chloe Anderson, age 18, no income listed, no work history. Co-signer, Bradley Turner. And in the references section, I saw my own name, typed neatly, as though I had vouched for it. My jaw tightened when I read that line. Nobody had asked me. Nobody had even told me. Brad had played it slick, wrapped the keys in a bow, made it look like a gift. In reality, Chloe had been handed a financial anchor, tied around her ankle before she'd even stepped out into the world. I could already see the chain of missed payments, late fees, credit damage, things she was too young to even understand yet. I drove to the bank in person. Sat across from a manager I'd known since the early days of my career. I laid it out plainly. My name had been used without permission, and from this point forward, I was not supporting Chloe financially in any form. No guarantees, no quiet backstops, no safety net. The manager frowned, tapping his pen. He didn't need me to explain further. An 18-year-old with no job carrying a brand new auto loan was as unstable as it sounded, and Brad's signature beside hers didn't carry much weight. His finances were stretched thin already, propped up by flash instead of foundation. The bank didn't argue. They didn't threaten. They just nodded, made notes, and said they would review the account. I knew what that meant. They were protecting themselves. A week later, the Civic disappeared. Not from the driveway with balloons tied to the mirrors, not in a blaze of glory, but quietly on a weekday morning, a tow truck hooking it up and pulling away while the neighbors pretended not to notice. No speeches, no applause, just rubber rolling over asphalt and the hollow space it left behind. I wasn't there to watch it, but I didn't need to be. I could picture Chloe coming outside, confusion turning to shock when she saw the empty spot. I could picture Brad fumbling for excuses, his salesman charm cracking at the edges. I didn't smile at the thought. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was confirmation. The truth had a way of surfacing, no matter how carefully it was buried under balloons and speeches. Brad had wanted to stand as the man who provided, who stepped in where I supposedly hadn't. Instead, he left Chloe with nothing but a repossession notice and a credit record already scarred before her life had begun. And me? I'd drawn my line with the bank. I wasn't her fallback anymore. She'd declared her loyalty in front of the world. Now the world was answering back. The phone lit up late in the evening, Lisa's name flashing across the screen. I let it ring once, twice, considering. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but I knew she wouldn't stop. So I answered, leaning back in my chair, voice steady. She didn't waste time. "What the hell did you do?" she snapped. No greeting, no pause. "The car is gone, Mark." A tow truck showed up in broad daylight and hauled it away like she's some deadbeat. Everyone on the street saw it. Do you have any idea how humiliated she is right now? I listened, letting her words rush over like cold water. When she finally drew breath, I said evenly, "I didn't take her car, Lisa. The bank did." "Don't play games with me," she fired back. "You talked to them. You poisoned the whole thing. You made sure they saw her as a risk." "She is a risk," I said, still calm. "She's 18, no job, no income. That wasn't a gift, it was a trap. You knew that, and Brad knew it too. If he wanted to play the hero, then he should have backed it up with his own money. Instead, he hung the debt around her neck and used my name without asking." Silence on the line, just her sharp breathing. Then her tone shifted, not softer but colder. "So that's it? You're just walking away? You're really going to stand there and tell me you're fine with your daughter having nothing?" I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose. She stood up in front of everyone and said Brad was the father figure she never had, that he was the one investing in her future. "Fine. Then he can invest. I'm not competing with him. I'm done." Lisa's voice cracked, anger tangled with disbelief. "Don't you dare twist this. You've been saving for that girl's future since the day she was born. Don't pretend like that doesn't matter. Where's the fun, Mark? Don't tell me you. It's not hers anymore." I cut in flat. I moved it. The line went dead quiet. For a moment I thought she'd hung up, but then she spoke again, slower now, every word laced with venom. $90,000 gone. You really did it." I didn't answer right away. I let her sit in it. Finally, I said, "I did what needed to be done. I'm not her safety net anymore. She made her choice, Lisa. You both applauded it. Now live with it." There was a small gasp, like she'd been slapped. Then the fury came roaring back. "She's 18, Mark. A teenager. She said something stupid at a party, and you're using it as an excuse to wreck her future. Do you know what that makes you?" "I know exactly what it makes me," I said. My voice didn't rise. "It makes me the man who spent 18 years showing up, paying every dime, being steady. And it makes Brad the man she chose to crown in front of 100 people. Don't call me to fix what he started." For a long stretch, she said nothing. I could hear the faint click of her nails against her phone. Then she muttered, low and bitter, "You're cruel." "No," I replied. "I'm finished." I ended the call before she could. Sat there in the quiet, phone face down on the table, heart beating steady. I'd drawn the line again, and this time I wasn't moving it. Brad's number flashed across my phone 2 nights later. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me, and I swiped. His voice hit me like a hammer. "What the hell did you do?" No build-up, no greeting. Just raw anger. "You went behind everyone's back and sabotaged that loan. You wanted the car gone, and you made sure it happened." I let the silence stretch before answering. "The bank took it, Brad. Not me." "Cut the crap," he barked. "They said you pulled support. You told them you weren't standing behind her. Without that, of course they panicked. You knew exactly what would happen." I leaned back in my chair, phone pressed loosely against my ear. "She was never in a position to hold that loan. And you knew it. You co-signed, sure, but you let an 18-year-old with no income take the lead. That wasn't generosity, Brad. That was theater. And now the curtain's down." His breathing was heavy on the line. For a moment he didn't speak. When he did, the edge in his voice had dulled. "You don't understand the spot this puts me in. I can't keep up those payments, not on my own. And that fund, Jesus, Mark, 90 grand? You really yanked it out from under her? From your own daughter." "That fund was mine," I said steady. "I built it. I guarded it. I didn't do it so someone else could parade around and pretend they provided for her. You wanted to be the father in front of everyone? Then own it. The anger drained from him, leaving something else, fear, maybe, or exhaustion. Look, I screwed up, all right? I thought the car would make a statement. I thought it'd show her I cared. I didn't plan for it to blow up like this. But the fund, you can't just take that away. She needs it. She's going to college in a few months. Don't punish her for my mistake. I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose. His voice wasn't loud anymore. It was pleading. You're not hearing me, I said quietly. She punished herself when she made her speech. You stood there smiling while she drove the knife in. You wanted credit, Brad. Well, you've got it. Now you get the bill too. There was a pause. Then softly, I can't cover 90 grand, Mark. Not even close. I don't have that kind of money. And Lisa, he stopped, caught himself, then pushed on. If you walk away, she's screwed. Chloe's screwed. You know that. I let his words hang heavy. Then I said, that's not my problem anymore. She stood up and called you the one who invests in her future. So invest. Step up. Be the man you pretended to be in front of that crowd. This is your responsibility now. He muttered something under his breath, too low to catch. Then louder. You think you're teaching her a lesson, but you're just hurting her. She's a kid. No, I said, voice hardening. She's an adult. Old enough to humiliate her father in front of 100 people. Old enough to live with the consequences. The line went silent, just his breathing on the other end, ragged and uneven. Finally, he whispered, you're colder than I thought. I didn't answer. A second later, the call ended. I set the phone down and sat in the quiet, my hands steady. Brad had wanted the role. Now he could have it, every piece of it. The call came late, after midnight. Her name lit up the screen, and for a moment I thought about letting it ring. But I couldn't. I answered. Her voice cracked the second I said hello. Dad, why did you do it? Why did you take my college money? The words tumbled out between sobs, frantic and raw. That was mine. You saved it for me. How could you just take it away? I let her cry, listened without speaking until her breathing slowed enough to hear me. It wasn't yours, Chloe. It was mine. 18 years of work, scraped together for your future. But at that party, you stood there and told the world it didn't matter. You said someone else was the father. Someone else was investing in you. I believed you. So I stepped back and let him take the responsibility. Silence. Just the sound of her trying to catch her breath. Then softer. I didn't mean it like that. I was just caught up. Everyone was watching. Brad had just. You meant every word. I cut in, calm but firm. You looked straight at me when you said it. That wasn't an accident. That was a choice. Her voice shrank. I was excited. I didn't think. That's the problem, I said. You didn't think. That car wasn't a gift, Chloe. It was a loan in your name. Brad put you on the hook for something you couldn't possibly carry. Do you understand that? He didn't buy you anything. He made you debt. The line was quiet, then I heard her sniffle. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. Because he didn't tell you. That's who you chose to stand beside in front of everyone. And that's who you'll be depending on now. She cried harder, mumbling apologies between breaths. I messed up. I really messed up. I'm sorry, Dad. Please. Please don't leave me like this. A week later, she showed up at my door. She looked nothing like the glowing girl in the driver's seat that night. Her hair was unwashed, her eyes ringed dark, her hands trembling as she clutched a cheap coffee cup. She stepped inside and dropped onto the couch like her body had no strength left. I've been working doubles, she said hoarsely. 2 jobs. I can't keep it up. I can barely think straight. I need help. I sat across from her, folding my hands. Do you know how many nights I worked late? How many times I picked up extra shifts, just to put something away for you? 18 years, Chloe. Every birthday, every holiday, I put money aside instead of spoiling you. Because I thought one day, it would give you a clean start. That's what real support looks like. Quiet. Steady. Boring. Not balloons and speeches. Not keys to a car you can't afford. Her eyes filled again, but she didn't look away. She whispered, I didn't see it. I should have. I just wanted to believe. You wanted to believe in easy answers, I said. But there aren't any. You crowned Brad as the one who cared. That was your choice. Now he gets the weight that comes with it. Not me. Her shoulders shook as she nodded, staring at the floor. I'm sorry, Dad, she said again, almost too soft to hear. I leaned back, my chest heavy. I loved her. Nothing could change that. But love didn't erase consequences. Weeks passed, and the rhythm of life settled into a new, sharper reality. Chloe was up early, dragging herself out of bed for long shifts, juggling applications for work-study programs and small student loans. I watched her over coffee one morning, tired eyes meeting mine across the table, and I felt a mix of pride and heartbreak. She was learning, in the hardest way, what choices really cost. Brad was largely absent in the process. He called once or twice, excuses fumbling out about busy workdays and unexpected bills, but he didn't step up with any real solutions. Every question about tuition, every concern about living expenses, was deflected back onto Chloe. The weight I'd once carried for her had shifted entirely to him, and now, entirely, she had to carry the consequences of her public declaration. Lisa called, her voice dripping with the kind of guilt-laced reasoning only she could muster. "Mark, she's learned her lesson. You don't have to keep punishing her. Can't you just help her a little? She's your daughter." I listened, letting her words roll off me. Calm, measured. "She made her choice," I said evenly. "She stood in front of everyone and declared Brad as her father figure. She humiliated me publicly. That was her decision. The responsibility now lies where she placed it." The line went quiet. I could hear her swallowing, grasping for words, but there were none that could undo the reality. I hung up and sat in the stillness, thinking about the fund, the $91,000 I had reclaimed. For 18 years, I had saved, sacrificed, built a future quietly. Now, the money wasn't tied to Chloe's future anymore. I could use it for me. A boat I'd wanted for years. A small early retirement. A chance to step out of the constant cycle of responsibility I'd carried for everyone but myself. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about anger. It was about clarity, boundaries, and letting reality settle where it belonged. Chloe had chosen, Brad had agreed to the role she crowned him with, and now they had to live with it. I watched the morning light spill across the living room, warm but firm, and understood that this, hard unflinching, was the only lesson that would stick. Sometimes love meant letting go, letting people face what they asked for, and letting the consequences shape them. And for once, I could finally think about myself. Do you think I made the right choice by stepping back after Chloe publicly humiliated me? Or should I have forgiven her and Brad? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious what you think. And if you want more stories like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out.